What up, gamers, and do I have a juicy composition for you today? And this is the Midnight Siphon, the Shovel Goat, the King, Yorick. This comp is a comp that has been kind of flying under the radar for a while because it really wasn't that good on the last patch. But on 14.7, this comp was really strong because of how strong Yone was. And on 14.7b, it's still quite strong. I don't even play Yone all the games that I play. I've played this comp a handful of times, but I've top 4'd every single time. Looked into the data on 14.7. I'm pretty confident this comp is very strong, especially for top 4ing. It's hard to first place with this comp. You can. We'll talk about those outs in a bit, but very good top 4 comp. And it's super fun. It's my favorite comp to play in the current patch. So this is what this is the default board you want to aim for on level 8. And we're playing for Yorick 3, Shin 3, Yone 3, and you can get a Kindred 3 sometimes, and it can be nice. It can pop off for you. But the real win condition of this composition is we just want a Yorick 3 because we can actually Kane can take us home. But if you want a first place, you probably need Yorick and Yone 3-star and a Kane 2 and be able to go 9. That's how you first place. But to get a top 4, you just need to get the Rick 3 and a Kane 2 can take you home at the end of the game. So let's talk about this. First up, let's talk about the Augment. So Midnight Siphon. Midnight Siphon, you gain a Yorick, your strongest Yorick gains 25% maximum health, additionally deals 25% of his max health with his ability. So this is a Yorick carry comp, but Yorick, you do not build AP on him because his ability scales, once you take this augment, now scales with HP, and it scales way harder with HP than it will with AP. So you just want to maximize HP, and this is going to be the best in slot. This is best in slot according to the data, and anecdotally, when I've played this, has felt extremely good. So Warmogs, you need the flat HP to scale your damage. Now let's talk about the difference between Warmogs and Sterex. If you have to build a Sterex here, perfectly fine. It's just Sterex gives you more effective HP, but you don't have the upfront HP because Sterex has to proc later on into the fight. So your damage will actually be a little bit lower at the beginning of the fight. And you don't really care for the AD. Yorick is just sitting there holding the shovel up the whole game. So you don't really care for the AD. Aim for Warmogs, but if you have to build a Sterex, do not be afraid to slam it. It's a very good item on him as well. And then Dequaw is going to be the superior item to Bramble Vest because it gives you more HP and the heal is really nice on this. And then Redemption is so good on this guy. Heals him so much. He has like 5,000 HP once you get him 3-star and have the items on here. He heals for a lot here. This is his best healing item. Don't build BT. It's okay, but go for Redemption. It's going to be much better for you. So that is best in slot. If you need to build a Bramble Vest, don't be afraid to build a Bramble Vest or a Sterex. Perfectly fine, but definitely try to aim for Redemption and Warmogs if you can. I think that's like Gigabis right there. So other than that, we want to build items for Yone. Now this is just like Bis Yone, but you can put whatever here. You need to prioritize Yorick items and Shred. So you need to have Ionic Spark or have a Shiv. Shiv is probably the best, especially if you can get a Kindred 3. The problem is it's hard to put Kindred on your board until you start pushing levels because your board is going to default around Heavenly and 4 Behemoth in the mid game. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So remember, aim for Yorick items and Shred, and then after that, leftover items are carry items for Yone or Kane. But again, we'll talk about early game in a second because if you have to slam items that go for Yone or Kane, slamming them early on a Darius 2 will give you so much tempo. So we'll talk about early game in a second. And then other augments, Raid Boss, this is Gigabis. Midnight Siphon, Raid Boss, Jeweled Lotus. This is best in slot. Now there's one other augment that performed really well in the data on 14.7, and I took the augment, felt really strong, is Wrath of the Moon. So Wrath of the Moon, I'm not sure if it's better than Jeweled Lotus or not. It's very good on Yorick, very good on Yorick. But if you actually end up getting the like Giga comp where you actually have a Yone 3 and you have a Kane 2 and you get all the Reapers online, you start pushing levels, then I think Jeweled Lotus is better in that spot. So just consider that either Jeweled Lotus or Wrath of the Moon here is what you want to take. And again, notice all of our augments are golden. Golden Gala is probably the best portal to play this comp because you can get all the best augments for our dudes. All right, so this is what the default in-game board looks like. Maybe we'll talk about capping it a little bit more later, but let's go back and talk about the early game. So when do you play this composition? I play this composition anytime I have a Darius pair and this is offered to me. Let's talk about why I think this is such a strong comp for top 4ing. And I think it is the best of the hero augments for like average placement. It might not reflect super well in the data, but if you know how to play the composition, I think you will on average top 4 way more often with this comp than any other hero augment based comp. And the reason is because Umbral is so strong on stage 2. So if you have a Darius 2 and a Yorick 1 and you have Duelist, you will almost certainly 5-streak or 4-streak. Like you're going to win almost all of your rounds on stage 2 because Darius is just such a beast on stage 2. Umbral is such a powerful trait. The shield, 200 shield, the 10% execute is so powerful. And then Yorick with the hero augment becomes like a legitimate threat at 1-star with no items. So if you get an opener like this, and again, if you get items to play something with Yone, like don't be afraid to slam the Darius items or the Yone items, even if you have the Yorick. Just don't waste your belts here. But if you need to slam some items to get some tempo here, do not be afraid to do that. This is like the Giga opener. So if I have a Darius 2 or a Darius pair, I'm taking this off rip if I see it. Now, the other time you want to play this comp is if you're already looking to play Yone or something like that, and you're playing around Umbral in the early game, you got a Yorick drop, and then you get offered Midnight Siphon Plus in the mid game. It's essentially like you just got chosen Yorick, especially if you already had a 2-star Yorick. The first time I took this augment, I had a 2-star Yorick, and I got offered Midnight Siphon Plus, and I just had 6 copies of Yorick, and the game was free. The game was so free. So those are the 2 instances I look to play this. Have a Darius pair or a 2-star opener, or I get offered the plus, and I was already looking to play Yone anyways. So the other reason why I think this composition is so powerful, and let's go over to the mid-game composition, is because no other comp in the game plays Yorick. The Yone composition right now, the Yone comp that a lot of people play, it's heavenly, and you don't even play Yorick on that board at all. You play Yorick in mid-game sometimes, but unless you're in low elo, you will not be seeing anybody playing Yorick on the board. The only other comp that is meta or semi-meta is Ethereal Chain Shin. Well, you'll roll for a Yorick 3 sometimes in that composition just because you're trying to thin out your own pool. The other thing that's really nice about this is if there's ghostly players in your game, you're probably not going to get your Shin 3, but they're hoarding all of the 2 costs. If there's a Janna player, hoarding all the 2 costs. There's a 2 healthy Teemo player, they're hoarding all the 2 costs. Yorick is so free to hit. If you don't hit a Yorick 3, you messed up something with your econ, or you just got like the lowest variance game possible. Like I've never even come close to not hitting Yorick because he is just that easy to hit. Because again, no one plays this unit unless you're playing this comp or you're temporarily playing a Yorick in a Yone comp, because right now the meta is you don't play Umbral. You play just as much Heavenly and Reapers as you can. So anyways, this is an example of what a level 6 comp can look like before you get the Yone online. So in order to be stable on stage 3 or semi-stable, you want to have a Yorick 2-star, a Darius 2-star, and 4 Behemoth, and you should be good to go. You don't need to do like a big transition unless you somehow didn't tempo early game. If you're really low health and you had to roll down for this, like you're probably just in a tough spot anyways. But if you took Midnight Siphon early and you tempoed with the Darius, you're in a great spot. This is very stable. And Yorick 2-star with the Augment, and if you can get some items on him for Behemoth, he will carry stage 3 very hard. Now, how do we take ourselves home? We're just going to sit here and slow roll for Yorick 3, Shin 3, and then eventually we're going to transition to our Yone. So we'll go Yone and Kha'Zix. We'll just swap these out for Yone and Kha'Zix. Once we hit the Yone 2-star, I think Darius 2 is stronger than Yone 1 on stage 3. If you get to stage 4, you just need to get out of Darius pretty much regardless. I mean, if you're on stage 4 and you're not on Yone 2, I don't know what's happening. So anyways, we'll transition to this composition. And then once we hit our Yorick 3, and maybe we hit a Shin 3, and maybe we hit this 2-star. I mean, hopefully we hit that 2-star where we're rolling, and we start getting our items online. I don't need to show it to you because I already have it made. We will push, and we'll look for a composition that looks like this. And to reiterate our win conditions at the end of the game, Yorick 3-star, as long as you tempoed early game, that's enough to get you a top 4, because this guy is such a beast on stage 2, stage 3, and stage 4. Now, Yorick really starts to fall off on stage 5. He can still do a lot of work, but he needs some help. And the way you give the help is either a Yone 3 or a Kayn 2. That's what you need to help. And sometimes you hit a Kindred 3. Again, if there's a lot of 2-cost rerollers and you have the room on your bench, I've hit some Kindred 3s and it's felt really nice. And I actually think the most superior version of this comp is actually when you can get your shred on your Kindred. It's just really hard to itemize this way because you have nobody to hold the items until you get your Shin, or until you're pushing levels. So it's usually just best to go for Spark. But if you can build a Shiv and you can get the Kindred on your board, it feels really, 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 really good. So let's talk about some other variations. I've played the Elune variation where I tried to reroll Elune, and it did not feel good. Now that's a way that you can get some free shred on your team, and you can slam a Shiv on her to get the additional 10% from that her ability doesn't give you. That version did not feel very good. It didn't look good in the data on 14.7, so I don't necessarily recommend that one right now. Look out for it, could be good. I've also played a vertical Umbral version of this comp because in the data 6 Umbral looked really good, but I think you're just like giga high rolling if you're somehow 6 Umbral and able to play 4 Behemoth and able to play Reaper. So I think you just aim for this default. So let's talk about emblems real quick. Emblems are a little awkward. So 6 Behemoth is just not a very good trait. If you look at the data on 14.7, it looks really good. But it's really good because if you hit 6 Behemoth, that's because you hit an Udyr. Hit an Udyr and you were able to go 9 and you have an emblem. So it's good then. And so let's talk about emblems in this comp. Are emblems good in this comp? They're okay. They're okay because what it can do for you is if you hit a, let's say a behemoth emblem, then on mid game, instead of playing 4 Reaper, or mid game on level 7, you can play 4 Reaper 4, you can play 4/4, or you can play 6 behemoth on stage 4 on level 7. So like that's nice, but we just want to get to 8 anyways and get the 4/4 online. So I don't think emblems are super strong, but if you can natural an emblem and get to 6 behemoth on level 9 with an Udyr, then the comp goes giga, especially if you have raid boss. If you don't have raid boss, like behemoth is just not a good trait. Unless you have raid boss, it's super, super, super good to go deep into the vertical. Anyways, guys, good luck with this composition. It has been so much fun to play, and I insta-cop this because I have not bought forward a single time I've taken it, and every game, it's just mental bliss. We get to see Shovel Guy just hold a shovel up. Anyways, appreciate you guys. Follow my stream, and good luck climbing.